Welcome to the FDN Executive Series. Today's episode is for senior leaders who've just been handed a very familiar challenge. And I'm sure some of us have heard this before. So the C-suite wants us to look deeper into AI readiness for the company. And what we're going to address in today's talk is where do we stand and what do we do next, right? So this is more than just a technical mandate. Obviously, strategic AI adoption involves cross-functional transformation, really. And this impacts architecture, security, even organizational culture. So for today's talk that I'll be facilitating, I'm joined by two exceptional leaders here. Teresa Squires is a seasoned strategist in technical change architecture and organizational design. We also have Darren, who is an AI and data intelligence executive and who scaled enterprise AI platforms across global healthcare and life sciences. So let's get into the AI execution playbook and what leaders like you, the audience, must get right from day one. So Darren, if you don't mind, let's start with the technical fundamentals a little bit. What's your advice to CIOs or technology leaders out there who stood up successful pilots, but really struggle with scale?
Thanks, Rami. Great question. Most organizations stumble because they approach AI as a project, a proof of concept designed to impress, but not to endure. They spin up models and silos, run a few successful pilots, but then they hit the wall when it's time to really operationalize the work that they do. In order to extract lasting value, AI must be treated as a platform. It's an evolving ecosystem with shared data pipelines, its reusable components, and governance that scales. That means you continue to establish the scaffolding. You need to look at it as a foundation that you're building. It centers around the MLOps pipelines, your model registries, continuous retraining loops, but also with real-time monitoring. So intelligence can be deployed, measured, and improved with consistency. Without this backbone, every new model becomes another isolated experiment that your organization has kicked off. According to MIT Sloan in 2024, only 11% of companies achieve meaningful ROI from AI at scale. The reason isn't lack of ambition. It's a lack of architecture, a lack of vision of how you're going to do this. True platform thinking demands API-first integrations, modular designs, and orchestration across functions so that AI is not something that data team does for the business, but it's something the entire enterprise builds with. So CIOs, CISOs, and VPs need to adopt a mindset. AI stops being a lab exercise and becomes part of the company's operational DNA.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Darren. So, Teresa, let's maybe turn to you. So from a transformation perspective, how does this mindset that Darren outlined, how does that ripple across the organization, in your opinion?
So good to be here with you, Rami and Darren. But to answer your question, it's huge. A platform model requires organizational readiness on top of IT infrastructure. It can't stand alone. Leaders are faced with the challenge to rewire how teams think about ownership, decision loops, and have to keep that outcome accountability. What I see most often is what I like to call the architecture gap. The CIO builds a scalable backbone, but the business doesn't evolve with it. Not because they don't want it to see successful, but it's a thoughtful process to go through. The org chart, incentives, and decision-making processes still reflect the pre-AI world. So that's why an operating model that blends business outcomes, technical feasibility, and change velocity is so important. When those three things align, the platform becomes more than a system. It becomes a powerful capability that'll deliver the results businesses are looking for. And readiness isn't just about teams. It's about retraining existing ones to think horizontally. Product managers have to understand data ethics. Security leaders have to collaborate on model validation. Finance needs to forecast learning curves, not just ROI. So AI readiness isn't just a tech checklist. It's a leadership mindset and organizational alignment. Because without that organizational scaffolding, AI platforms stall. Not because of code, but because people and processes weren't upgraded along with the IT infrastructure.
Yeah, no, thank you, Teresa. And I think one word I use in this context, some of what we're explaining is governance, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. So, because I've seen too many AI strategies and programs really try to bolt governance piece later on, and then they have to, pay later on for doing that. But or even worse, I guess just they try to throw in some words like trustworthy and ethical just for marketing purposes, right? So you have to really, what I advise leaders to do is really understand and manage security and risk for AI related artifacts throughout the life cycle, right? So for example, you want to have model registries with lineage, you want to have the assessments or audits performed to really identify your risks and any deviations from your plans. More on the security side, I would say you have to consider the prompt injection and API abuse and things like that. But you also have to think about drift detection, right? So you want to know, and also know about drift, and also you want to think about adversarial testing. So you don't want to assume that every user, every environment is going to be trusted, obviously. And most importantly, back to the governance piece, you have to bake all of that into the gating process for each stage, right? And shadow AI is another area that I see is related to governance. So in fact, recently I saw a report from IBM that found that 1 in 5 organizations suffered a breach that was tied to shadow AI. And most of these issues really stem from lack of governance in my mind, right? It's not bad code, it's just lack of governance.
You know
So
what?
your thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah, I really like what you pointed out there because it really broadens, right? Governance isn't just risk mitigation, and risk mitigation is important, but you got to really look at the trust architecture. Because if your business users don't trust the model or understand the guardrails, they're not going to use it. Or worse, they'll just misuse it. So I really like what you said, Rami. We need cross-functional governance structures from day one where risk, tech, and business share the table.
Awesome. All right. So another topic that often comes up with clients is how do you really go beyond just doing the pilots or testing, right? So Darren, maybe I'll go to you next. What's your take on scaling from a successful model to, let's call it, an enterprise-wide capability?
Rami, I would say it in one word: repeatability. If you can't repeat the process over and over again and reuse it, then you've missed a mark. And everyone's looking for high double-digit revenue impact, or I'm going to save all this OpEx. And yes, I've done projects like that where it was very focused and we achieved it at enterprise scale. But the key word that I just said is the fact that it was repeatable and it was a narrow focus. So if you're going to start to scale, you need to start at the foundational level, which is what I said earlier: reusable components, data prep pipelines, deployment scripts. A federated AI team that is embedded capabilities into functions. The key word is embedded. And then as well as the KPIs. Look, everyone's looking for that quick ROI. Don't get me wrong. I talk about this every day. You need to have that yardstick ready, but also it needs to be achievable. Start narrow before you go wide. But I think, Teresa, you can add to this because there's more things than just the technical side of this.
It is, and it breaks. Your scaling will break if you try to stay just in, here's one person leading it and it's just tech oriented and risk oriented. You've really got to involve the teams and have them understand a clear why behind the model, which empowers them to develop new routines for integrating IA into the decisions across the organization, and leadership narratives that help explain the value, not just the math, so you do see those ROIs and the KPIs.
Awesome. Let's speak on the thread of risk here just a little bit. So Teresa, from your time in network and operational management, what do you see as most overlooked?
Many orgs focus on the input-output risk, but forget the human in that loop risk. And it's really that's the key that we got to focus on along with everything. But are operators trained on what AI can and cannot do? Is the decision support auditable? Can humans override it and be accountable with that override? And you also need to consider insider threat risk as model decisions become automated. That's really a field that's yet to be explored.
I think it's a good point that you're raising, Teresa. The one thing that it made me think about was I had a recent deployment. We noticed a major increase in prompt injection attempts once the non-technical teams started using generative AI tools. The takeaway is that as AI use spreads across your organization, security teams, they have to do the basics, need to go beyond, defend the endpoints, but they need to go beyond that. They need to actively coach safe usage patterns, explain how manipulative prompts can also then compromise your outputs. You just can't let it sit and not provide education, which I think is one of the points that you raised earlier.
Yeah, awesome. So from a security perspective, this is just my area as well. Certainly this is something we've heard over and over, but I guess for AI, it becomes more magnified that security is not just a technical controls anymore, right? It's also about addressing those behavioral challenges, maybe architectural risks, as well as the processes and procedural things that we got to look at as well. So as far as orchestrating change, I guess, Teresa, that's your home turf. So what's your blueprint for org change that you think keeps pace with the AI execution? Because that's sometimes a concern for some folks that we don't want to put too much bureaucracy in it. So how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, so I think it really becomes powerful when teams just don't train for AI, but really the organization takes time to re-architect around it. And that's just so key. So a couple of blueprint steps that I recommend is just start with an AI capable org map, which asks the question, who needs to do what differently? And that'll help you decide in some of your approach of scaling or implementing AI. So build that enablement strategy, allow for coaching, process redesign, peer-driven knowledge exchange, make use of the people and their interest in this and help elevate it. And then you can identify who's your transformation catalyst. People who are really good at leading through uncertainty and have digital fluency can really help accelerate how your scaling and rollout go. I coordinated transformation where we realigned systems, behaviors, incentives around new intelligence. And the key thing to remember is adoption just doesn't happen because people understand a technology, and in this case, AI. It happens because they see it, their role in it, and how they tie to moving the organization forward. So make use of all that power of your people. So I'd say, bottom line there, transformation succeeds when people can see themselves in the future that you're building.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. So Darren, maybe final advice for AI leaders who want to execute with confidence.
Yeah, I think for leaders, don't try to do everything. Don't be afraid that you're going to fail. There are going to be attempts that fail. And my advice to you on that is fail quickly, because not everything's the perfect AI case. But win with a narrow focus. You can win with 3 great models that scale, pay off. It teaches the organization how to win. You're able to bring the organization along with you, as Teresa was just eloquently saying before. But let those become your blueprint of how you start and go down that journey.
Oh, and I'm just going to add one thing, Darren. Lead with intent, right?
Yeah.
With everything you said, then have the strength of intent of your decisions and align your strategy, structure, and systems and how you convert AI from innovation to impact.
Perfect. All right. With that, I would say thanks everyone for joining us today. The last thought I have here for AI leaders is really that execution is your leadership edge, right? So hopefully some of the topics we covered here were helpful in that regard. By the way, if today's discussion sparked ideas or questions, we'd love to hear from you. So connect with us at Fractional Talent Network to explore how our expert community can help you your organization move forward with confidence, whether you need to build an AI strategy, assess your AI readiness, modernize your tech stack, or really just rethink your strategy at scale. Make sure to like, share, and follow us on social media, and don't miss future Tech Talks. Until next time, I'm Rami. Thanks for watching.